Leo Wright's fingers traced the edge of his datapad as he sat in the back row of the conference room. 3 months working on the Galactic Conservation Station, and the other researchers still moved their chairs away when he entered a room. He understood why. Humans were new to the galaxy, and everyone knew Earth was a death world. The fact that he could smile showing teeth made most of his co-workers nervous. Director Prill stood at the front of the room, her long neck swaying gently as she spoke about the quarterly conservation reports. She resembled an Earth gazelle, if gazelles had silver fur and 4 eyes. Her species, the taurine, had been studying dangerous predators for centuries, always from a safe distance. The entire station operated on that principle. Observe, record, never interact. Around the room sat representatives from dozens of species. Beetle-like Bowen soldiers served as security, their thick armor plating making soft clicking sounds whenever they shifted. Small bird-like Cheery took notes with their delicate clawed hands. Everyone here was prey species or peaceful omnivores. Until Leo arrived, no predator had ever worked in conservation. The Verdun Preserve is showing positive growth, Prill said, her voice musical and calm. The hunter population has increased by 12 individuals this year. Leo leaned forward with interest. Verdun hunters were magnificent creatures. 6-legged predators with crystalline spines running down their backs. They were critically endangered with only a few hundred left on their home preserve world. Every new birth mattered for the species' survival. Suddenly, red lights flooded the room. A harsh alarm shrieked through the speakers. Everyone jumped to their feet, chairs scraping against the floor. Prill's 4 eyes went wide with fear. Security alert, a mechanical voice announced. Juvenile predator escape in Sector 7. All personnel evacuate affected areas immediately. The room erupted into chaos. Researchers pushed toward the exits, their voices rising in panic. Leo stayed in his seat, watching his datapad as it automatically switched to the emergency tracking system. A small red dot moved through the station map, heading directly toward their location. It's coming here, someone screamed. Security Chief Bowen burst through the side door, his armored body nearly filling the doorway. Seal the exits. We're trapped. The creature is in the corridor outside. What species? Leo asked, his voice cutting through the panic. Bowen's compound eyes fixed on him. Verdun hunter. Juvenile, approximately 8 months old. Is it hunting or running? What does that matter? Bowen's mandibles clicked in agitation.
It's a killer!
Leo stood and moved toward the main door. Behind him, Prill made a sound like a strangled gasp. Right, get back. That's suicide! How did it escape? Leo kept his voice steady, watching the door. Maintenance accident in the habitat, Bowen explained, his weapon charging with a high whine. The cub got through before they could seal it. It's injured and aggressive. Injured explained everything. Leo pulled up the habitat files on his datapad, scanning quickly. The juvenile had been born in captivity 6 months ago. Mother died during birth, hand raised by robots to avoid imprinting. No positive contact with living beings. Scared, hurting, alone in a strange environment with alien smells everywhere. Set weapons to stun only, Leo said. Stun won't work on a Verdun hunter, Bowen replied. Their neural structure is too distributed. It's lethal force or nothing. The door buckled inward with a metallic screech. Deep gouges appeared in the reinforced material. Someone behind Leo started crying. He could hear others praying in languages he didn't recognize. The whole room pressed against the far wall as far from the door as possible. Another impact. The door bent further. Through the gap, Leo caught a glimpse of crystalline spines, each one glowing faintly with bioluminescence. The creature was magnificent even in its terror. Everyone stay calm, Leo said, knowing no one would listen. The door gave way with a final shriek of tearing metal. The Verdun hunter crashed into the room, 6 legs scrambling for purchase on the smooth floor. It was smaller than Leo expected, maybe the size of an earth panther. But those crystal spines stood fully erect, and its 6 eyes reflected the emergency lights like mirrors. Blood streaked its rear left leg. The researchers screamed. The sound seemed to hurt the creature. It flinched, spines rattling, and slashed at the nearest chair. The furniture exploded into pieces. Someone fainted. Others pressed so hard against the back wall that Leo worried they'd suffocate each other. Bowen raised his weapon, the targeting laser painting a red dot on the creature's chest. His hand shook. Leo moved before he could think about it. He stepped between the weapon and the cub, dropping to one knee. Around him, the panicked screaming somehow got louder. Prill shouted his name, but the words seemed distant. The Virdan hunter spun toward him, all 6 eyes locking onto his face. This close, Leo could see its pupils were dilated with fear. Its body sat low, weight on its haunches, ready to spring. But the angle was wrong for an attack. This was pure defense. The cub was cornered and terrified. Leo made himself smaller, lowering his center of gravity. He extended one hand, palm down, not reaching forward. Non-threatening, peaceful, the universal language of calm. The cub took a step toward him, crystal spines quivering. Behind him, someone whispered. "He's going to die." Leo began to whistle. It was a soft sound, low and warbling, the kind of noise that meant safety in a dozen Earth languages. Not words, just pure gentle intention carried on breath. He'd used it on frightened wolves, on injured bears, on baby elephants separated from their mothers. Fear was fear, no matter what planet you came from. The Virdan hunter's spines lowered slightly, just a fraction, but enough. Leo kept whistling, adding a quiet hum underneath. The cub took another step, then another. Its damaged leg dragged slightly, leaving a thin blood trail on the floor. The room held its breath. Even the alarm seemed quieter. Leo stayed perfectly still, hand extended, whistling his gentle song. The cub's nose twitched, scenting him. Predator recognizing predator, but also recognizing something else. Something that said friend, not threat. The juvenile Virdan hunter pressed its snout into Leo's palm. Then it climbed into his lap, circled twice and curled into a ball. Its purr rumbled through Leo's chest like distant thunder. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The most dangerous predator in the galaxy slept peacefully on the human's knees, while 50 researchers stared in absolute shock. Leo looked up at Director Prill and smiled, carefully keeping his teeth hidden. Could someone bring a medical kit? This little one has a nasty cut that needs treatment. Prill's mouth opened and closed 3 times before any sound came out. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "What are you?" Leo gently stroked the cub's head, careful to avoid the crystal spines. "Just someone who understands scared kids no matter how many legs they have." The medical kit slid across the floor, pushed by a trembling 3-fingered hand. Sana, one of the cheery medical officers, had gathered enough courage to approach within throwing distance, though her feathers stood on end with fear. Leo caught the kit without moving his other hand from the sleeping cub's head. "Thank you," he said softly. Sana chirped something that might have been acknowledgement before retreating, back to the relative safety of the crowd. Leo didn't blame her. From her perspective, he was sitting within biting distance of a creature that could tear through metal doors. That he seemed relaxed probably made him look insane rather than brave. Leo opened the medical kit slowly, keeping his movements smooth. The Virdan hunter stirred slightly, one eye opening to watch what he was doing. Leo kept humming, that same gentle sound that had calmed the creature before. The eye closed again. The wound on the rear leg wasn't too deep, but it was filthy. Metal shavings and station debris had gotten into the cut, probably from the escape through the maintenance tunnels. Leo pulled out an antiseptic wipe and carefully cleaned around the injury. The cub's leg twitched, but it didn't pull away. "You're doing great," Leo murmured. "I know it stings. Almost done." From across the room, Security Chief Bowen watched with his weapon still raised, though the targeting laser was now pointed at the floor. His mandibles clicked nervously. "How is it not attacking you?" "Because I'm not threatening it," Leo explained, applying synthetic skin to seal the wound. "Look at its body language. Spines are down, breathing is slow, legs are tucked. This is what relaxed looks like." "Relaxed?" Prill's voice cracked. "That thing destroyed a reinforced door. It was scared." Leo finished with the wound and closed the medical kit. Injured, lost, surrounded by unfamiliar smells and sounds. It panicked. Panic and aggression look similar, but they're not the same thing. "It could still kill you in seconds," Bowen insisted. "So could you," Leo pointed out. "Your armor has blade attachments and your species is 3 times stronger than mine. But you're not going to kill me because you're not scared or angry. Same principle applies here." The cub shifted in Leo's lap, adjusting its position. Its purring grew louder. Several researchers gasped and backed away even though they were already against the wall. Leo had to admit the sound was intimidating. It rumbled like an engine vibrating through the floor. "What happens now?" Prill asked. Her silver fur had gone almost white with stress. "We can't keep you sitting there forever. We need a transport stretcher and a clear path back to the habitat," Leo said. "The cub needs proper rest and monitoring. That wound should heal fine, but I want your medical team to check for infection. How do we move it without it waking up and attacking?" Leo considered this. The cub was exhausted, probably from the escape and the panic and the pain. It felt safe now, safe enough to sleep, but moving it would risk waking it up, and a startled predator was a dangerous predator. "I'll carry it," Leo decided. "Absolutely not." Prill's 4 eyes went wide again. "Right, you've done enough insane things for one day. It trusts me. If anyone else tries to touch it, we'll be back to square one." Leo carefully adjusted his position, preparing to stand. "Besides, it's not that heavy. Maybe 40 kilograms. 40 kilograms of teeth and claws," Bowen muttered. 40 kilograms of scared baby that needs help," Leo corrected. He slowly rose to his feet, supporting the cub with both arms. It made a small sound, almost a question, but didn't open its eyes. Leo started humming again, and the creature settled back into sleep. The walk through the station felt longer than it actually was. Medical teams had arrived outside the conference room, all wearing full protective gear and carrying enough equipment to treat major trauma. They stared as Leo walked past with the juvenile Virden hunter cradled in his arms like a sleeping pet. "Clear a path to Habitat 7, Prill ordered, her voice tight with tension. She walked beside Leo, maintaining a careful distance. "Everyone stay back. Give them space." Station personnel lined the corridors, watching in silence as the human carried the predator through their workplace. Leo heard whispers in a dozen languages. Some sounded amazed, others sounded terrified. A few sounded angry, probably upset that he'd risked everyone's lives with his stunt. But he'd saved lives, Leo thought. If Bowen had fired that weapon, the cub would be dead. An irreplaceable member of a critically endangered species, killed because everyone was too afraid to see past their instincts. The habitat section was different from the rest of the station. Here, massive containment chambers held reconstructed ecosystems from dangerous worlds. Virden Preserve occupied the largest space, a sprawling recreation of crystal forests and thermal vents. Through the observation window, Leo could see the adult Verdun hunters moving through their territory. They looked up as the group approached, their 6 eyes tracking movement. "The mother died giving birth to this one," Sana explained, having followed at a safe distance. Her feathers had settled back down now that the immediate danger was past. "We tried to find a foster parent among the adults, but none accepted it. Verdun hunters are very particular about their young." "So it's been raised by robots?" Leo asked. "Automated feeding and care systems," Prill confirmed. "We couldn't risk putting handlers in with the adults. Too dangerous. Which means this cub has never had positive physical contact with a living being." Leo felt a surge of sadness. No wonder it was so scared. It had been alone its entire short life. They reached the juvenile habitat, a smaller chamber connected to the main preserve. Inside, automated systems maintained food supplies and temperature controls. It looked efficient and safe and completely sterile. No warmth, no companionship, no comfort. "How do we get it inside?" Bowen asked. "Open the access door," Leo said. "I'll take it in. You want to go inside the habitat?" Prill's voice rose several octaves. "Right, the whole point of this facility is that we don't go inside with the predators. This one time won't hurt." Leo was already moving toward the access door. "Besides, I want to make sure it settles properly. If it wakes up alone again, it might panic and hurt itself trying to escape." Prill looked like she wanted to argue more, but something in Leo's expression stopped her. She turned to the control panel and entered her authorization code. The access door slid open with a quiet hiss. The habitat interior was warmer than the corridor, heated to match Verdun environmental needs. Artificial crystal formations dotted the floor, and the lighting mimicked the purple-tinted sun of the species' homeworld. Leo carried the cub to a padded resting area and gently laid it down. The juvenile stirred, eyes opening. For a moment, Leo thought it might panic again, finding itself in an unfamiliar place. But then the cub focused on his face and made a soft chirping sound. It stretched all 6 legs, yawned wide enough to show impressive teeth, and curled back into a sleeping position. Leo carefully backed toward the door, keeping his movements slow. The cub watched him but didn't follow. It seemed content now, settled and safe. "Rest well, little one," Leo whispered. Outside the habitat, Prill waited with her arms crossed. Behind her, a crowd of station personnel had gathered. Everyone wanted to see the human who had tamed a Verdan hunter with nothing but a whistle and gentle hands. "You know this is going to be in every report I file for the next year," Prill said. But there was no anger in her voice, only wonder. "I know," Leo replied. "The council is going to have questions." "I know. They're going to want you to explain how you did that." Leo smiled, still carefully hiding his teeth. "That I can do. In fact, I think I'd like to train anyone interested in learning. This doesn't have to be a one-time thing." Prill's ears twitched, a taurine expression of surprise. "You want to teach prey species how to handle predators?" "I want to teach anyone who'll listen how to understand them," Leo corrected. "There's a difference between handling and understanding. One is about control. The other is about respect." Inside the habitat, the juvenile Verdan hunter began to purr again, the sound carrying through the observation window. Several researchers jumped, but others leaned closer, curiosity starting to overcome their fear. Maybe there was hope after all. 3 days after the incident, Leo found himself sitting in a small meeting room with 12 nervous researchers. They had volunteered for his first training session, though their body language suggested they were regretting that decision. A taurine named Oren kept his chair positioned closest to the exit. 2 cheery sisters, Pip and Trill, clutched their data pads like shields. Even Bowen had sent 3 of his security officers, though they stood rather than sat, armor plates locked in defensive position. "Thank you all for coming," Leo began. He kept his voice calm and friendly. "I know this is uncomfortable. Questions before we start?" Oren's hand shot up immediately. "Is there any chance something dangerous will come into this room?" "No," Leo assured him. "This session is pure theory. No live animals." The visible relief in the room was almost comical. Oren's shoulders dropped. The cheery sisters loosened their grip on their data pads. One of the security officers unlocked his armor plates. "Good," Oren muttered. "Good." Leo pulled up a holographic display showing various predator species from across the galaxy. "Let's start with a simple question. What makes something dangerous?" "Teeth," Pip said immediately. "Claws, venom, physical weapons." "Size," added one of the security officers. "Mass and strength." "Hunting instinct," Oren suggested, his voice quieter than the others. Leo nodded. "All correct. But here's the important part. Having weapons doesn't mean using weapons. A creature can be dangerous without being a danger. Understanding that difference is the first step." He zoomed in on an image of a Verdan hunter, the same species as the cub from 3 days ago. "Tell me what you see when you look at this." "Death," Trill whispered. "A killing machine," Bowen's officer added. "An apex predator that could tear through our station walls," Oren said. Leo listened to each answer, then changed the image. Now it showed the juvenile from the incident, the one he'd held in his lap. The one currently recovering peacefully in its habitat. Same species. "What do you see now?" The room went quiet. Finally, Pip spoke up. "It's smaller than I thought." "The crystal spines were down when you held it," Trill added. "They looked almost pretty in that state." "It was scared," Oren said, surprising everyone, including himself. "When it first came through the door, it wasn't hunting. It was panicking." "Exactly," Leo said. "Context changes everything. That cub wasn't a killer the other day. It was a frightened child with sharp teeth. The teeth were real, the danger was real, but the intent wasn't there. It didn't want to hurt anyone. It wanted to feel safe." He pulled up another image, this time from Earth. A large brown bear standing on its hind legs, mouth open, showing massive teeth. "This is a Kodiak bear from my homeworld. 3 meters tall, 600 kilograms, strong enough to bend steel with its bare paws." "What's it doing in this picture?" "Threatening someone," Oren guessed. "Preparing to attack," a security officer said. "Actually, it's yawning," Leo explained. This bear had just woken up from a nap. Mouth open, teeth showing, standing tall. All the signs everyone here would interpret as aggression, but it was just tired. Misreading this situation could get someone killed. Not because the bear is evil, but because responding with aggression makes the bear defensive. And defensive animals are genuinely dangerous. The researchers leaned forward, studying the image more carefully. Trill tilted her head. "How do you tell the difference?" "Body language, context, and patterns," Leo said. He started pulling up comparison images. A hunting predator moves differently than a defensive one. "See here. Hunting stance is focused forward. Weight distributed for a spring, eyes locked on target. Defensive stance is wider. Weight back, eyes scanning for escape routes. One is planning to advance, the other is hoping to retreat. But they both look scary, Pip protested. Fear is an emotion, not data, Leo replied gently. Our feelings are valid, but they're not always accurate. That's why we practice reading signs instead of just reacting to instinct. Over the next hour, Leo walked them through dozens of scenarios. He showed territorial displays versus genuine attacks, stress behaviors versus aggression, warning signals versus hunting preparation. With each example, the researchers asked more questions and fewer of them were about how to escape. What about the whistle? Oren finally asked. That sound you made that calmed the verdant cub. Was that a special frequency? Nothing special about it, Leo said. I was using soft, rhythmic, low-pitched tones. Those tend to signal calm across most species. Think about it. Harsh, loud, sharp sounds mean danger, alarms, screams, crashes. But gentle, repetitive, quiet sounds mean safety. Rain, wind in trees, a parent's voice soothing a child. So you were pretending to be its parent? Trill asked. More like I was pretending to be not a threat, Leo corrected. The cub didn't think I was its mother. It thought I was a safe presence in a scary situation. That was enough. Bowen's security officer raised a hand. What if it hadn't worked? What if the cub attacked anyway? Then I would have been hurt, Leo admitted. I won't lie to you. What I did was risky. But here's the thing. Every option was risky. Bowen was ready to shoot with lethal force. That would have killed an endangered juvenile and traumatized everyone in that room. Trying to trap it would have extended the panic and possibly resulted in more injuries. The whistle and calm approach had the best chance of a good outcome for everyone involved. You gambled with your life, the officer said. I made an educated guess based on years of experience. Leo countered. There's a difference. I read the situation, recognized the signs of defensive fear rather than hunting aggression, and responded appropriately. Could I have been wrong? Yes, but I wasn't guessing blindly. I was using information. Pip's feathers had smoothed down completely during the discussion. She looked at her sister, then back at Leo. Could we learn to read those signs too? Or is it something only humans can do? Anyone can learn, Leo promised. It takes practice and study, but there's nothing magical about it. Humans aren't special. We're just experienced. Earth has thousands of predator species, and we've lived alongside them for our entire evolutionary history. We learned to read their signals because we had to, but that knowledge can be taught. I'd like to continue these lessons, Oren said suddenly. Around him, others nodded in agreement. Even the security officers looked interested now. We'll meet twice a week, Leo decided. Theory first, then later we can do observation sessions at the habitats. Just watching, understanding patterns. No direct contact until everyone feels confident in reading basic behaviors. As the group filed out, chatting among themselves with excitement instead of fear, Director Prill appeared in the doorway. She'd been observing from the hall. That went well, she commented. They're ready to learn, Leo said. That's half the battle. Prill's ears twitched. The other half is what exactly? Unlearning the fear, Leo replied. That's going to take longer, but we'll get there. Through the window, the Verdun preserve was visible in the distance. The juvenile cub, the one Leo had held, was visible through the habitat observation glass. It was playing with one of the enrichment toys, batting a ball back and forth between its paws. It's thriving, Prill observed. Better than before the incident, actually. The medical team says its stress levels are down. Good, Leo said softly. Because of you. Because someone finally showed it kindness. Leo watched the cub play, his heart warm. Every creature deserves that, predator or not. 2 months had passed since the incident, and the station felt different. Leo noticed it in small ways. Researchers no longer moved their chairs when he entered rooms. Conversations didn't stop when he walked by. Yesterday, Oren had actually invited him to lunch in the common area, sitting at the same table without visible nervousness. The training sessions had grown. What started as 12 nervous volunteers had expanded to over 50 regular attendees. People brought friends, colleagues asked questions in the hallways, and even station administrators started showing up to observe. Today was special, though. Today was the first practical observation session. Leo stood outside the habitat of a species called crescent stalkers, large feline-like predators from a moon colony. Beside him, Pip and Trill clutched their note tablets with determined expressions. Behind them, Orin, 3 security officers, and a handful of other researchers waited. "Remember," Leo said quietly, "we're just watching. No sounds, no sudden movements. We're learning their natural behavior." "I read the material 3 times," Pip whispered. "Tail position indicates mood, ear angle shows attention focus, and whisker spread signals comfort level." "Good," Leo encouraged. "Now let's see if you can spot those signs in real animals." He activated the observation window. The habitat beyond was designed to mimic the crescent moon environment, all silver vegetation and low-gravity simulation. 3 adult stalkers lounged on various levels of the terrain. The largest was grooming itself near a water feature. The other 2 seemed to be sleeping. "What do you see?" Leo asked. Trill spoke first. "The big one is relaxed. Its tail is loose, not tense. Ears are in neutral position. The 2 sleeping ones have their backs to each other," Orin added, "but they're close enough to touch. That's trust, right? They feel safe with each other." "Exactly right," Leo confirmed. "These 3 are family, siblings from the same litter. They've been together their whole lives." One of the sleeping stalkers yawned, showing teeth that would make most prey species faint. But the researchers watched with curiosity instead of terror. They were learning to see past the weapons to the behavior. "The yawning one just woke up," Pip noted. "Now it's stretching. Front legs, back legs. Oh, and now it's grooming too." "Standard morning routine," Leo explained. "Same as anyone else. Sleep, wake, stretch, clean up. Predators aren't mysterious. They're just animals with daily habits." The training continued through the morning. They observed 6 different predator species, taking notes and asking questions. When a verdant hunter approached its habitat window, drawn by the movement of observers, Trill didn't flinch. She watched its eye movement and noted that it seemed curious rather than aggressive. "That's the juvenile," she realized. "The one from the incident." The cub, now noticeably larger than 2 months ago, pressed against the transparent barrier. Its 6 eyes focused on Leo specifically. It made a sound, part chirp and part purr. "It remembers you," Orin said with wonder. Leo placed his palm against the window. The cub pressed its nose to the same spot from the other side. "Of course it does. I showed it kindness when it was scared. Animals remember that. Does it want to see you?" Pip asked. "Probably," Leo admitted. "But it's better if we maintain boundaries. The goal is for it to eventually join the adult population in the main preserve. Too much human contact might prevent that." As if understanding it wouldn't get what it wanted, the cub made another sound and wandered back into its habitat. But it looked back twice, clearly hoping Leo would follow. "That was harder than expected," Leo muttered. "Having feelings for research subjects?" Prill's voice came from behind them. She'd arrived without anyone noticing. "Welcome to the emotional complication of conservation work." "How do you deal with it?" Leo asked. "I remind myself that keeping distance is what's best for them," Prill replied. "That cub needs to be a verdant hunter, not a pet. Your job isn't to be its friend. Your job is to prepare it for a life with its own kind." Leo knew she was right, but it still felt wrong to walk away from an animal that clearly wanted companionship. Another lesson learned. Understanding predators meant understanding what they needed, even when they wanted something different. The afternoon brought a different kind of training. Bowen had arranged a simulation exercise using holographic projections. The scenario was simple. A predator had escaped containment. What should the response be? The first team tried traditional protocols. Raise weapons, corner the creature, prepare for lethal force. The simulation showed how that approach escalated the situation. The holographic predator became more aggressive, more desperate, more dangerous. "Reset," Bowen ordered. "Right, show them your way." Leo approached the holographic creature differently. He observed its behavior first. Scared, injured, defensive. He made himself non-threatening, used calm vocalizations, waited for the creature to make choices rather than forcing it into corners. The simulated predator calmed. Not immediately, not magically, but gradually as it recognized safety instead of threat. "Time comparison," Bowen announced. "Traditional method. Estimated containment time 15 minutes with high probability of casualties. Wright's method, estimated time 20 minutes with low probability of casualties." "It takes longer," one of the security officers protested. "But everyone lives," Leo countered, "including the predator. Isn't that worth 5 extra minutes?" The officer considered this, then nodded slowly. "When you put it that way, yes, they ran more simulations. Different species, different scenarios, different environmental factors. Each time, the students practiced reading behavior before reacting. Some got it right immediately. Others needed multiple attempts. But everyone was learning. By evening, Leo was exhausted but satisfied. The training was working. People who once fled from predators were now discussing them like colleagues discussed weather patterns. Analytical, curious, respectful. Director Prill found him in the observation lounge, staring out at the stars beyond the station. "You've changed this place," she said. "People did the changing themselves," Leo replied. "I just gave them permission to try. The council wants a report on your methods. Other stations are asking for information. What you've started here, it's spreading." Leo smiled. "Good. The more people who understand predators, the fewer predators die out of fear. They're also asking about you specifically," Prill continued. "About humans. Whether your species would consider working on other conservation stations throughout the galaxy." "We're not special," Leo said for what felt like the 100th time. "Any species can learn this. But you're willing to teach it," Prill pointed out. "That's what makes you valuable. Not your death world origins or your predator instincts. Your patience and your desire to share knowledge." Through the window, one of the habitat zones was visible. The juvenile verdant hunter was curled up in its sleeping area, crystal spines glowing faintly in the artificial darkness. It looked peaceful, safe. "I just want them to have a chance," Leo said quietly. "All of them. Every predator that gets labeled as a monster before anyone tries to understand it. They deserve advocates who see past the teeth and claws to the living being underneath." "Then keep teaching," Prill said, "because people are listening now, and that's how we change the galaxy. One student at a time." Leo nodded, watching the sleeping cub. 2 months ago, that creature had been terrified and alone. Now it was healing, growing, preparing for a future with its own kind. Not because of any special human magic, but because someone took the time to understand instead of fear. Maybe that was the real lesson. Understanding didn't eliminate danger, but it gave everyone better options than violence. And better options meant better outcomes. The galaxy was learning. Slowly, carefully, but genuinely learning. That was worth celebrating. The message came through on a quiet morning. Leo was reviewing training materials when his datapad chimed with an urgent priority notification. Director Prill's face appeared on the screen and she looked worried. "Right, we have a situation. Can you come to my office immediately?" 5 minutes later, Leo stood in front of Prill's desk while she pulled up a holographic display. It showed a station schematic from a facility called Deep Space Conservation Post 12, located 3 sectors away. "They had an incident," Prill explained. "Similar to ours. A predator escape. But they didn't have anyone with your training." She paused, her 4 eyes reflecting sadness. "Security killed the creature. It was a female spiral dragon, one of only 63 left in existence." Leo felt his stomach sink. Spiral dragons were magnificent beings. Massive serpentine creatures with bioluminescent scales that created hypnotic patterns. Losing one was a tragedy for the entire species. "That's not all," Prill continued. "The dead dragon had cubs. 3 of them, still nursing age. The station doesn't know what to do. They can't raise them without a mother, but they can't risk another adult dragon either. They're asking if we'll take them. 3 orphaned cubs." Leo considered the logistics. "That's a lot of specialized care." "They're asking for more than just shelter," Prill said quietly. "They want you, specifically. They've heard about what you did with our Verdan hunter cub. They want someone who can handle dangerous juveniles without killing them if something goes wrong." Leo understood the weight of that request. Those cubs had just lost their mother because someone panicked. They needed careful, knowledgeable handling. One wrong move, one fearful reaction, and the species could lose 3 more individuals it couldn't afford to lose. "When do they arrive?" he asked. "Tomorrow," Prill replied. "I need to know if you're willing to take primary responsibility for their care." "I am," Leo said without hesitation. "But I'll need help. This can't be a one-person job. I was hoping you'd say that." Prill pulled up a list of names. "These are the researchers who have shown the most progress in your training. I thought we could form a specialized care team." The list included Pip and Trill, Oren, 2 of Bowen's security officers, and several others Leo had worked with closely over the past months. Good people, all of them. People who had overcome their fear and learned to see predators as animals rather than monsters. "Perfect," Leo approved. Let's meet with them today. They need to understand what they're signing up for. The team meeting happened that afternoon. Leo stood before the group and didn't sugarcoat the situation. 3 spiral dragon cubs, approximately 4 months old, orphaned after their mother was killed during a containment incident. They'll be traumatized, possibly aggressive, definitely scared. They're also venomous, strong enough to break bones with their tails and capable of creating disorienting light patterns with their scales. Anyone who isn't completely sure about this can leave now with no judgment. Nobody moved. Oren raised his hand. What do they need from us? Food every 6 hours, temperature-controlled environment, and most importantly, gentle socialization. These cubs need to learn that not every situation is a threat. After what happened to their mother, they'll probably assume every living thing is dangerous. How do we convince them otherwise? Pip asked. Slowly, Leo replied. Very, very slowly. We move at their pace, not ours. We let them make choices. We never force interaction, and we watch their body language constantly for signs of stress. The next day, the transport arrived. The 3 spiral dragon cubs came in specialized containment units, each one designed to prevent escape but allow observation. Through the transparent sides, Leo could see them huddled in tight coils, scales dim with stress. They're so small, Trill whispered. Small was relative. Each cub was roughly 2 meters long and thick as Leo's torso. But compared to adult spiral dragons, which grew to 15 meters, they were indeed babies. Let's get them settled, Leo directed. Habitat 12 is prepared. We'll release them there and give them space to adjust. The habitat had been designed specifically for this. It mimicked the spiral dragon native environment, all floating crystal platforms and vertical space for climbing. Automated feeding stations were installed, but Leo hoped to eventually transition to hand feeding once the cubs learned to trust them. Releasing the cubs was nerve-wracking. Each one emerged from its containment unit with obvious fear, immediately seeking the highest platforms and coiling tightly. Their scales flickered with rapid, jagged patterns that Leo recognized as distress signals. Everyone out, he ordered quietly. We'll observe from the external monitors. They need time alone first. For 3 days, the cubs barely moved. They stayed coiled on their platforms, scales dim, refusing food. The team took turns monitoring them around the clock, watching for any sign of health decline. They're grieving, Oren observed during his shift. I didn't know animals could grieve. Most do, Leo replied. He was on his 4th consecutive monitoring shift, too worried to sleep, especially intelligent species. They had a mother, they knew her, and suddenly she was gone. That's trauma, same as it would be for any of us. On the 4th day, the smallest cub moved. It uncoiled slightly and approached one of the feeding stations, sniffing cautiously. The team held their collective breath as it took a small piece of the prepared food. Then another. Then it returned to its platform and coiled back up. Progress, Pip said with relief. First step, Leo agreed. Now we build on it. Over the next week, all 3 cubs started eating. They began exploring their habitat, testing the climbing structures and investigating the water features. Their scales gradually brightened, showing more stable patterns. They even started playing with each other, gentle wrestling matches that showed they weren't too traumatized to be social. When do we try direct contact? Bowen's security officer asked. Not yet, Leo decided. Let them stabilize first. Let them learn this place is safe. Then we'll start presence training. Presence training meant simply being visible to the cubs without interacting. The team would enter an observation corridor that ran through the habitat, separated by transparent barriers. The cubs could see them, study them, get used to their presence without feeling threatened. Trill took the first presence shift. She sat in the corridor with a book, reading quietly while the cubs watched from a distance. They didn't approach, but they didn't flee either. After an hour, she left without incident. They looked curious, she reported. The medium-sized one kept tilting its head when I turned pages. Each team member took turns with presence training. Some the cubs seemed to like better than others. Pip's bright feathers fascinated them. Oren's calm, slow movements seemed to reduce their stress indicators. Leo's presence made them wary but not panicked, as if they recognized something familiar in him despite the species difference. After 2 weeks of presence training, Leo decided to try the next step. He entered the habitat itself, not the observation corridor but the actual living space. The cubs were on their platforms watching. He sat down in a neutral area, not approaching them, and pulled out his datapad to review reports. He pretended to ignore them completely, Curiosity eventually won over caution. The smallest cub descended from its platform, moving with the flowing grace of a water serpent. It approached to within 3 meters of Leo, scales flickering with cautious patterns. Leo kept reading, showing no reaction. The cub came closer. 2 meters. 1 meter. Finally, it was close enough to touch. It extended its head, sniffing at Leo's boot. He remained still, barely breathing. Then it retreated back to its platform. Leo waited 15 more minutes before leaving the habitat. Outside, the team was celebrating. It worked, Pip said excitedly. The approach and retreat pattern, exactly like you predicted. First contact successful, Leo agreed. Tomorrow we try feeding. Hand feeding was the ultimate trust exercise. The team prepared carefully, each person practicing with food items that matched what the cubs liked. Leo demonstrated the proper technique, keeping hands steady, movements predictable, never grabbing or forcing. When they tried it with the cubs, the smallest one approached Leo first. It had shown the most curiosity, the most willingness to take risks. Leo held out a piece of prepared meat, keeping his hand low and non-threatening. The cub took the food gently, its mouth careful not to touch Leo's fingers. Then it ate while maintaining eye contact, scales showing relaxed patterns. You're okay? Leo whispered. You're safe here. We won't hurt you. The cub finished eating and moved closer, pressing its head against Leo's knee. The gesture was so trusting, so innocent, that Leo felt tears sting his eyes. These babies had watched their mother die. They'd been ripped from their home, transported across space, and placed among aliens. They should have been terrified, aggressive, impossible to reach. Instead, they were learning to trust again. That was the real miracle. Not that humans could calm predators, but the predators could overcome trauma and choose connection over fear. Maybe that was the lesson the galaxy needed most. 6 months after the original Verdun Hunter incident, the Galactic Conservation Station had become famous. Researchers from across civilized space requested transfers to work there. The training program Leo had started now had a waiting list 300 names long, and most importantly, not a single predator had been killed due to panic or misunderstanding since that chaotic day in the conference room. Leo stood in the main observation deck, watching the habitats below. The 3 spiral dragon cubs had grown significantly, now almost 5 meters long each. They were playing in their habitat, creating beautiful light patterns with their scales completely relaxed and healthy. The smallest one, which the team had affectionately started calling Shimmer, was the most confident. It would approach the observation windows whenever Leo was nearby, pressing against the glass in greeting. The Verdun Hunter cub had also grown. It was nearly adult size now, and Director Prill was preparing to introduce it to the main preserve population. The cub had learned proper hunting behaviors through observation and instinct, but it had also learned something the wild-born hunters hadn't. It knew that some beings were friends, not food. Remarkable work, a voice said behind Leo. He turned to find an elderly taurine approaching, her silver fur marked with age stripes. I'm Council Member Nira. I've traveled quite far to see the station personally. Welcome, Leo said, respectful of her obvious authority. Director Prill didn't mention we were expecting council inspection. This isn't an inspection, Nira replied, her 4 eyes warm with interest. This is recruitment. The council wants to establish predator understanding programs on 40 stations across the galaxy. We need someone to design the curriculum and train the trainers. Leo blinked. That's a massive undertaking, which is why we're offering a full team position, not just asking you to do it alone. We want to build an entire department dedicated to changing how the galaxy approaches dangerous species conservation. Nira gestured to the habitats. What you've proven here is that fear doesn't have to dictate policy. Knowledge can. I'd need to bring some of my current team, Leo said, mind already racing with possibilities. Pip and Trill are excellent at breaking down complex behaviors into teachable concepts. Orin has a gift for patience that would serve training purposes well. And the security officers who've been through the program understand tactical applications of these principles. Take whoever you need, Nira agreed. The council is committed to this. Too many endangered species have been lost because containment protocols valued security over understanding. Your methods prove we can have both. Over the next week, Leo met with his team to discuss the opportunity. Some chose to stay on the station. feeling their work with the current predator populations was too important to leave. But others jumped at the chance to spread the knowledge further. Imagine, Pip said excitedly during one planning session, a galaxy where every conservation station has people who understand predator behavior, where escapes don't end in death, where research actually helps the species instead of just studying them from a terrified distance. We'll need materials, Trill added, already making lists. Video examples, simulation programs, standardized assessment protocols to measure progress. And we need to account for species-specific fear responses, Oren pointed out. What works for taurine might not work for other prey species. The training has to be adaptable. Leo listened to them plan with pride. These were people who had started as terrified researchers who couldn't look at a predator without shaking. Now they were designing galactic-scale education programs. Growth like that was worth celebrating. The day before Leo's team was scheduled to depart for the council headquarters, Director Prill organized a farewell gathering. The entire station attended, packing into the common area with food and drinks from dozens of worlds. I won't lie, Prill said during her speech. When Wright first arrived, I voted against hiring him. I was certain having a Death Worlder on station would lead to disaster. She paused, her ears twitching with amusement. I was right about the disaster part. He completely disrupted everything we thought we knew about predator conservation. And thank the stars for that. The room erupted in laughter and applause. Leo felt his face heat with embarrassment, but he smiled. What I learned from our human colleague, Prill continued, is that the most dangerous thing in conservation isn't the predators we study. It's the fear that prevents us from understanding them. Wright taught us to question our instincts, to read behavior instead of assuming threat, and to approach every situation with curiosity before caution. Those lessons will serve this station for generations. After the speeches, people approached Leo individually to say goodbye. Medical Officer Sana, who had been too scared to get within 10 meters of him 6 months ago, hugged him warmly. Security Chief Bowen presented him with an honorary badge from his unit. Even researchers Leo had barely worked with wanted to thank him for changing the station's culture. The next morning, Leo made one final visit to the habitats before leaving. The spiral dragon cubs gathered at the window when they sensed his presence. Shimmer pressed against the glass, scales showing patterns that Leo had learned meant happiness. Be good, he told them softly. Your new handlers are well trained. They'll take excellent care of you. At the Verdant Preserve, the hunter cub had been successfully integrated with the adult population. Leo watched it playing with another juvenile, both of them practicing hunting techniques on artificial prey. It looked happy, healthy, complete. You did it, he whispered. You survived and you thrived. That's all anyone can ask. The cub paused in its play and looked directly at the observation window, 6 eyes focusing on Leo. For a moment, they held that gaze. Then the cub chirped once, the same sound it had made when Leo first calmed it all those months ago, and returned to its game. Recognition and goodbye all in one gesture. On the transport ship heading to Council Space, Leo sat with his team and reviewed their plans. 40 stations to train, thousands of researchers to educate, countless predator species that would benefit from better understanding. Think we can do it? Pip asked, looking slightly overwhelmed by the scope. I think we have to try, Leo replied. Every predator that dies because of fear instead of knowledge is a failure we can prevent. Every researcher who learns to read behavior instead of just react to instinct becomes an advocate. Change happens one person at a time, one station at a time. Very philosophical, Trill teased. Very human of you. Speaking of human, Oren said curiously, will there be other humans at the council headquarters? I'd be interested to meet more of your species. Probably, Leo said. Earth has been sending conservation experts across the galaxy since we joined the community. We're good at this kind of work because we grew up on a world where everything was dangerous. We learned young that understanding is survival. And now you're teaching the rest of us, Pip noted. Sharing what you learned the hard way so we don't have to learn it through tragedy. Leo nodded. That was exactly it. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't physical resilience or predatory instinct, or any of the things that made other species nervous. It was the willingness to take hard-earned knowledge and spread it freely, to help others avoid the mistakes humanity had made over millennia of learning to coexist with danger. The transport ship jumped to faster-than-light travel, stars streaking past the viewport. Somewhere out there, 40 stations waited. Thousands of researchers waited. Hundreds of endangered predator species waited, unknowing, for the change that was coming. A change that started because one frightened predator cub stumbled into a room full of terrified researchers, and one human chose to whistle instead of run. Simple choices could reshape the galaxy. Leo had learned that lesson well. Now it was time to teach it to everyone else. The juvenile Verdant hunter had started as a crisis. It had become a teacher. And the lessons it taught through Leo's intervention would echo across civilized space for generations. Not bad for a scared baby with crystal spines and too many eyes. Not bad at all. In his quarters that night, Leo pulled up a final message from Director Prill. It was short and simple. The Verdant cub completed its integration today. Full acceptance by the adult population. Medical team says it's the healthiest juvenile we've ever raised. Thank you for showing us that kindness isn't weakness, even when dealing with creatures that could tear us apart. You changed this station, right? Now go change the galaxy. We'll be cheering for you. Leo smiled, saved the message, and pulled up his training materials. 40 stations, thousands of students, countless lives to save. The work was just beginning, but for the first time in galactic conservation history, the tools existed to do it right. Understanding instead of fear, knowledge instead of panic, compassion instead of containment. That was the human gift to the galaxy. Not strength or resilience or predatory skill, but the wisdom to see past teeth and claws to the living, feeling beings underneath, and the dedication to teach others that same sight. One whistle had started everything. One moment of choosing calm over chaos. One decision to understand instead of destroy. Sometimes the smallest actions carried the greatest weight. Leo understood that now more than ever, and he was ready to help the galaxy understand it too.